Hello, happy Saturday, everybody. It is currently Friday, February 2nd. You'll be hearing us on February 3rd or so. It's this week's episode of Puck Dynasty, All-Star Edition, with myself, Ryan Black, and my good friend, Evan Debert. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good. I wouldn't quite say we're the All-Stars here, but, you know.
I didn't say it's our All-Star Edition.
Oh, okay.
It's the All-Star. We're talking We're talking All-Stars. We're not going to talk All-Stars that much. We'll talk about it a little bit. You know, I have very little patience for the All-Star game. Here's why. As I'm sure you can relate, as I'm sure a lot of our listeners can relate, I am a refresh the score app junkie. I like to refresh the score. I like to see who's scoring goals. Matt Duchene, Tyler Seguin, and Mason Marchment have been my biggest buzzkills of the whole year because I got myself a few stars in Rupe Hintz and Jason Robertson. And more often than not, when the dopamine kicks in because I see Dallas has scored a goal, it's the other guys. It's ridiculous. I'm out here trying to acquire Matt Duchene just so I can stop being so disappointed all the time. It's stupid. So I miss it. I miss it this week. I don't like not being able to hit refresh. I'm a little bit of a junkie in that sense. I'd admit I don't like the week off. I have been saying all week I would very much prefer if they did the All-Star game a week after the Stanley Cup. Like football, you know?
I get that, but you know logistically that's just not going to happen.
I know for a lot of reasons it's not going to happen. Yeah. Scheduling reasons, the break. I mean, here's the thing though, is the NHL, unsurprisingly, is the worst league at acknowledging that fantasy hockey exists. You know, we've got a week here where there's like 7 games. The NFL knows what side its bread is buttered on. They give you a good schedule all the time. It's always very even. You know, NHL just can't seem to accept the fact that people are interested in the sport in ways outside of tuning in on paid cable networks, and they just don't want to accommodate it at all. And I don't like that.
Well, and I feel like fantasy football propelled the NFL to this echelon of like, it took over church on Sunday because people had to stay at home and watch Red Zone and see how their fantasy team did. And guys are taking, 3 hours a week to build their roster and everything. So
guys and NFL, gals, guys, everyone.
Yeah, this is true. Yeah. The amount of women that I know that are into fantasy football and fantasy football actually attracts people into the sport.
That's right.
Too. And so it's almost like the fantasy football game is bigger than the actual football game that people are watching. That's why Red Zone is so popular.
Well, and now you got Taylor Swift out there. Like the NFL just can't do anything wrong. It's just if Austin Matthews started dating Taylor Swift next week, that would be the best thing that happened to hockey since Wayne Gretzky.
Matthews is too busy trying to keep Bieber. Just taking his. We'll leave it. We'll leave it at that. Hey, and
you mean his BFFs though, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but hey, any BFFs that Bieber decides not to hang out with that night is probably pretty good, pretty upper echelon as well. So.
Yeah, I bet they had some fun at UFC. Bieber seems like, as far as I don't really follow all that stuff, but he seems like he'd be a good time. I don't love the All-Star break. I don't love the voting process. I don't love that every team has to send a guy. I certainly don't love that the Vancouver Canucks have 5 guys there this week. And who was Chicago's? Is it 6 with Lindholm now? So it's Hughes, Miller, Pettersson, Demko, Lindholm,
Tocchet,
Bozer,
and Tocchet 7.
Oh, piss off. It's too many. Did Chicago end up having a guy there? It's hard to tell watching the skills comp because they're not letting everyone go anymore. But Chicago would have had to send someone, right? Or I know Bedard is there, but I don't know. Anyways, the fact that every team has to send a guy is dumb too. You end up with a lot of guys sitting on the sidelines, and it's just Panarin's not in the All-Star game. He's top 5 scorer. Like what? It seems like a lot of the fluff and a lot of the fan service kind of ends up in a less entertaining product. So whatever, it's a week off for fantasy hockey.
And I get why they do it a number of different ways. Oh, my car. Oh, come on.
Oh, my stream froze. We're trying to watch the last event right now.
Oh, he just sauced him, man.
What event even is it right now? I don't even.
This is Puck Relay.
Puck Relay.
Yeah.
So that's a new
it's
one.
like obstacle course, and they got to do sauce passes into mini nets and everything.
Oh, like this one. Yeah. You know,
you know what? Like watching what I could watch of the skills comp tonight, I think they did a really good change in what they're offering for people to watch and get, to tune in, rather than just being it just became a bore fest for the last little while, and they knew it. They kept trying things like, shooting like on the beach, shooting the puck through surfboards or whatever the heck they were doing last year in Florida. So this is pretty entertaining. It's going to come down. Well, McDavid looks like he's going to walk away with it, but yeah, I get what the All-Star Game's for.
It's not for us.
Yeah, they're for kids to tune in. And I remember as a kid, I loved watching it too. I don't know if my dad really loved watching. My dad just likes watching hockey, period. He doesn't care. So, but yeah, it is what it is. They're trying things. The 3-on-3. The problem with the game itself, it's like going to watch pickup hockey. That's when you get to it. Like, guys aren't really trying.
Well, did you see Kucherov during the second skating one, the stick handling and skating one? He walked it.
Oh, did he?
McDavid did it in, I don't know what, I think it was like 35 seconds, and Kucherov took like a minute and 8. He didn't mess up. He just like was like he
knew he was out of it. But he was doing the passing one early, and he had a bad start. I think he was almost intentionally missing targets. So I guess that's kind of like the problem with this format, is like when you're out of it, you kind of lose your drive to kind of go for it. But yeah,
it's
there's
also
been some impressive stuff. Like McDavid did the accuracy shooting in 9 seconds.
He took 4 shots at 9.1. Matthews took 5 at 9.3.
Wow.
Yeah, so Matthews got an extra shot in there, but he missed one, unfortunately. But that, yeah, it's funny you say going back to childhood, because the last time I can remember enjoying like skills competition is like back when I was a kid. The Wills and Campbell's jerseys, like that's when I remember the good, nice orange and blacks. Like that's the last All-Star games I really was amped for.
The memorable ones that I can think of
Gretzky
as an adult is like it's basically the hardest shot, like when they were using the whippy sticks and charted 115 and everything like that. So that's all I remember from that. Just crazy stuff. But yeah, as a kid, All-Star game, we all remember Owen Nolan doing the point on Hasek.
Oh, you blocked me. I was going to say, what was your favorite All-Star moment ever? And that's mine, is when he pointed.
Oh, for sure. It was the best. Yeah. Yeah. On Hasek. And I think that was for the Hattie too.
Well, and it was also Hasek if I recall, Hasek hadn't let in the goal that period. And Nolan had a couple breaks on him. And this time he was just like, it's going in. So, that and it's nice when you get great moments like that. I'm hard pressed to think of another even memorable moment like that in the last 10, 15. I don't remember. I don't know what would take second as my most memorable All-Star moment since then.
One that kind of clue just popped in my head was Heatley. I think he got 4 goals in a period or something.
That
too.
Rings a bell.
That would have been about 20 years ago. But
I never really tune in for the things. I watch them, but like I'd sooner be watching hockey.
But this skills comp is going to be a hit. I can tell you that.
You think so?
Yeah, I think this is what they're going to do from now on. The players are enjoying it, and it's nice because you get to see a group of them kind of do all the skills, and it all kind of matters. Like $1 million, $1 million, whether they donate it to charity or whatever. But
The interesting
That'll
thing
be
here, I think, they did an interview with Rasmus Dahlin about 45 minutes ago. And I think it was PX. It was like, so like, you'd probably be pretty good at some of this stuff. Hey, and he's like, yeah, I think I got a pretty hard shot and like I can pass. So how do you think you would do? Well, I think I would win it, but they didn't pick me for anything. So I'm just watching. It's it's got to be a bummer for the guys who are just sitting there watching Six Leafs and McDavid go at it in Makar.
yeah.
Anyways, it doesn't matter. Whatever. It is nice to see an attempt for the personalities. Did you happen to catch Michael Bublé's interview yesterday? Your pause is telling me no.
No, I think I read the headline, but I didn't catch the interview. No. Barzell zoomed through the obstacle course, and now he can't hit a sauce pass.
Oh, I'm still at Nylander. I'm behind you. So
right
Bublé went out, and a guy, he's a reporter, he's in a fantasy league with, said something about fantasy hockey. He said, yeah, I'm in fifth in one league, I'm in first in the other. And thirdly, I would just like to state that my friend who said he gave me a microdose did not give me a microdose. I feel like I was in Blades of Glory out there. So that was fun. I think that's the moment for the weekend. All right. Well, that's enough about the All-Star game. It has been a very busy week for trades. You would think it's the deadline. Two of the biggest pieces have moved. Certainly the two biggest signers have moved. I'd like to talk about these deals a little bit. The first one being the Lindholm trade. So you and I have talked a little bit about this through a couple of our group chats. What are your thoughts about this one right off the hop? I'm sure you talked about it on the show on Wednesday too.
Yeah, I did talk about it. I was trying to suss it out just in my head as I was talking to the guys on the Hockey Hacks. And I couldn't quite get the Kuzmenko, the Flames grabbing Kuzmenko. And then, as I was, just trying to piece it together, it's like, well, it's similar to the Toffoli trade where they got Sharangovich, some goal scoring. They want to get younger, but they don't want to bottom out and just go all prospects and picks. And hopefully they can find a sniper that works well with Huberdeau. And it looks like that's what they're planning on doing with him. So
I'll do you one better. I think that we saw why they took Kuzmenko today. Which is we saw the rationale behind Kuzmenko. I agree. Calgary didn't want to throw in the towel, at least optically. So Kuzmenko does that. But Sean Monahan was traded as a cap dump.
Yeah.
And a year later, so they got a first for him when they took him. And a year later, they got another first for him when they flipped him. And if you think about it, when that original Monahan trade happened to Montreal, no one thought he was going to do anything other than be a buyout or maybe a bottom sixer in Montreal. But he bounced back to be worth a great... They got 2 firsts for the Sean Monahan cap space. It's incredible. Would you not say that Kuzmenko, who I believe is 15 months earlier than Monahan, who scored 39 goals last year, has a great chance of recouping some value for Calgary next year?
Totally.
If not earlier. So one rationale of the deal I saw by Vancouver fans who I would argue have a little bit of just blinders going on. They said, well, if you think about it, it's Kuzmenko. The cost to dump him was Hunter Brewsterwich. And so really they only got a first for Lindholm. And I was like, what? Like, that's how you're going to balance out this trade? Like, I agree Kuzmenko right now has 0 value, but I wouldn't say he has a top prospect negative value either.
No, I don't think so either. And I think with how things have unfolded under Tocchet and in the system there in Vancouver, that I wouldn't say not given a fair shake, but to paint him as having no value or having a negative value where you have to include a prospect like Hunter there, I disagree with that line of thinking. I think he's a great candidate to bounce back. He's going to be given every opportunity. There's no one blocking him for top offensive ice time. So,
McDavid just won it.
Oh yeah, I know. You were talking while you just zipped through the whole thing. So, $1 million. Who's it going to, Connor?
The last Oiler fan who said to trade me.
Yeah.
on air, that guy had balls. I think if Kuzmenko was free, Chicago would have taken him. I think he'd be like, that would be a nice fit for Bedard. He's not going to help them win many more games. In fact, he might make them lose it, but he'll also score 25 goals playing alongside Bedard. So I think if Kuzmenko had negative value or free, he would have gone somewhere else. I think it's a very good trade for Calgary. I think the trade makes a lot of sense for Vancouver. It's, should help with the Pedersen negotiation that they went out and got a Swede and they're pushing all in. So it's nothing but I think it's a very good win-win deal. And the Flames crush it.
It was a smart trade on both sides. Like Rutherford and Conroy getting together and kind of hashing out something that works quite well for both teams. And actually, I would not be surprised the rest of the way that Kuzmenko outperforms Lindholm.
Yeah, that wouldn't shock me either. Yeah. If they just go out statistically, if they just go out and say, we don't care about our end of the ice, go out and do what you do. And it was said part of the reason he waived was because Conroy and Huska got on the phone with him and said, we're going to give you PP1 and primetime line mates, and we just want you to go out and score goals. So if they let him do that, like if you're a Kuzmenko owner, I'd hold him right now.
Yeah, they'd be like, hey, look, we got one of the best passers in the league who needs a trigger man, and we want you to be that guy. And Calgary is a nice city, and so weather's great here.
It's not that nice, you bum. Saskatoon. That's a nice city. Saskatoon.
Yeah, you'll get a lot of people agreeing with that one. But Calgary is like a decent city for an NHL city. And he gets a chance to look, he's playing for a contract in a year and a half. So at this point in time, the way things were going in Vancouver, he wasn't going to get more than $3 million. So he might be able to
might even be a stretch.
Yeah, someone would have to take a gamble on him. But what was his shooting percentage?
29.
29. So it's like Sam Reinhart's in that same ballpark.
Sam Reinhart's shooting 27.4 right now.
So it's similar to that. So it's like I don't see Reinhart dropping off quite as much, but Florida and Zito are going to look at Reinhart, and when it comes time to negotiate, be like, "Look, man, you had a great year.
We have had this conversation. They should never have let him start the season without a deal." I mean, the only saving grace for Florida might be the fact that they exist in Florida. So rather than having to offer him 10 to start the conversation, they can offer him 8.5 because of the tax situation. Like that's the only saving grace. If he's in Toronto, he's talking Willie Nylander right now and losing half to the feds and all that. Yeah, no, it's bad, man. You cannot let these guys get into their contract year. They're totally hooped now out there. And Montour's a UFA this year. Fortunately for them, he's had a down year. But like, if you had to pick a number for Montour right now, coming off the year he had last year, and obviously injured this year, like I think he's getting at least 6 or 7 mil.
Yeah, to get him. So he's unrestricted this year.
Yeah.
So to get him. Dang, that's a hard one because he kind of came out of nowhere last year with like a jump in production.
Well, I mean,
and don't get me wrong, he was awesome in the playoffs, like everything,
and in the regular season, but in the playoffs,
especially the playoffs,
him and Kachuk were insane. And last year, he only had 13 points in the playoffs in 21 games. I say only, but there were 8 goals, so that's huge. Put up 73 points in 80 games. And this year we're looking at 11 points in 33 games, a previous career high the year before of 37 points in 81 games. And he is 29 years old, 30 in April. So he'll be 30 when he signs this deal. I think a lot of it will have to do with term. I don't think they're going to give him an 8-year contract at $7 million, but they might have to give him 4 or 5.
it's such a tough spot to be put in as a GM. I'd be tempted to offer 6.5 times 6, and that's as high as I'll go, and I still don't feel overly confident.
Yeah, I'd start at 6.5 times 4. See what he says.
Yeah, and that's rough. But again, like you said, Florida, like it was like we've talked about how Kachuk at 9.5 takes home more money than Nylander gets at 11.5 in Toronto, and so it ain't fair.
No, it certainly
for sure.
is not.
That's a tough one for you.
That's a tough one for every team.
You got the weather, you got the tax.
Miami,
and the NHL loves it because they're trying to grow the game down south. So
yeah, I'll say this: if it was Canada that had the taxes, they would have fixed the cap by now.
Yeah,
that's for sure. Yeah, that can't happen. Yeah, it's pretty silly, man. It's a really unfair advantage. I'd love to see them adjust the cap to dollars after taxes. It would make such a huge difference. There's no reason they shouldn't. Like, there's absolutely no reason that 6 teams have this kind of a leg up on other teams when free agency and contracts are such a big part of building
that's
your
so
team.
Impossible to do because not everyone signs the signing bonus where they get that lump sum in that state. And then you have guys like Matthews whose residence is in the States, so there's a tax loophole there where they don't necessarily pay that Canadian tax.
No, rate. You get paid where you earn the money. So you get paid when you're on the road, you get paid in the 41 places you play. Mm-hmm. And then the 41 home games, he's getting paid in Toronto.
There is a tax loophole for Americans as they use their primary residency.
And he's claiming his primary residence isn't in Toronto?
No, it's in Arizona, where there's no state income tax. So there is something in there. I don't know exactly. I'm far from an accountant, so I don't know exactly how that works. But I remember reading and trying to figure it out, and just like my brain just goes to mush when like accountant talk gets going. I'm like, I don't.
Yeah. Well, I would think there'd be a way to make it better than it is, or at least more level than it is. I'm not an accountant either, but I mean, the way it is broken. It's as broken as the guys injured till game 1 of the playoffs. Those are two things that just don't. For a league that likes to preach competitiveness and parity,
I know how to fix that one if they wanted to.
Lay it on me.
So
full cap in the playoffs.
If you don't, keep everything the same. If you don't play a game after the trade deadline in the regular season, you cannot play in the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah, that would do it.
It's done. Problem solved.
That would do it. Yeah, the 1 through 8 is close enough that it wouldn't be worth missing Kucherov for the first round like Tampa's been doing, or that would fix it. Other trade. Sorry.
Monahan. Yeah, no, sorry, I cut you off there.
Yeah, Monahan. That's a big one, man. Montreal 2 years in a row has gone in and scooped up a first for a guy that a lot of people would have said, no way. We had Chariot last year, 2 years ago.
Yeah, to Florida.
Last year to Florida. Yeah. No, that was 2 years ago.
That was 2 years ago. Yeah.
So that was the first, and now they've done it again with Sean Monahan. It's kind of ridiculous the way these guys are. I read they have 24 picks in the next 2 drafts, 7 of which are in the top 2 rounds. That's how you do it. Kent Hughes knows what needs to be done.
Yeah. He's weaponizing that cap space, that Molson money, and all that. So
it's a masterclass, man. If I'm a fan of any other rebuilding team, watching them not do what Montreal is doing, I'm livid. Like, you might not have had the idea, but steal the idea. Do that. Take these contracts back. Get that money. I mean, and then you got poor Arizona, who's been doing it for 3 years and has not a lot to show for it yet through, busted draft picks and, well, mostly busted draft picks. But yeah, heck of a deal for Montreal. Congrats all you Habs fans. I hope this means we see more Joshua Roy this year, because I was having fun watching him. And then
it gives a chance for some of those young guns to come up, and it's quite the trade tree for between, well, that Monahan deal and for what the Habs have accumulated over the last year and a bit. I saw it on the Flames Reddit. I can't pull it up here. Did you see that?
Yeah, I did. I meant to save that.
Did someone take it down?
Well, it's on the Habs one too, so I'm going to bring it up right now. It's not just Monahan though. It was
what was the Toffoli trade?
So here it is. Here's the trade returns between the Flames and Habs over the last 10 years. You ready?
To the 10 years, or is it
last 10 years?
Okay.
Flames, Sharangovich and a 2023 third. To the Habitant, Emil Heineman, who's looking good. Philip Mazar, Lane Hudson, a 2023 fifth, a 2024 first, a 2024 fourth, a 2025 conditional first, and a 2027 conditional third is what that trade tree works out to.
Yeah.
It's really something. That's just, that's Oiler level asset management right there. And I say that very self-aware.
The funny thing is, with the flipping of Monahan, they did that so they could sign Kadri, and you couldn't get a first for Kadri right now. So it's like the guy you paid a first to get rid of is returning the team you traded him to for a first. Now, mind you, he's had a good season, so he's earned that value, and they were able to sign him for a cheaper contract. So that's why he was worth a first at that $2 million. And there's just no centers available. So teams need to start to try to make centers available here that aren't contending, because getting a first for Sean Monahan, come on.
Well, that's just indicative of the center market. It wasn't to free up the room for Kadri though, because they made that trade last summer. Not 2023, 2022. They signed Kadri this year.
No, they didn't. They signed him.
Was it
summer of?
Yeah, has he been there a year and a half already?
Yeah, this is his second season there.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I thought I was going crazy there for a second. Jeez.
What happened to the last year? Who won the cup last year? Didn't Colorado just win the cup? I tell you. Wow. Yeah, okay, you're right. Sorry about that. Yeah, it's gross, man. It's such good asset management on Montreal's part. It's too bad that who knows? Some of these picks might be home runs, but they could have got a couple guys shortly after Mazar who would have made that trade tree look even more amazing as of now. But Lane Hudson being in there, we like that. So the next biggest guy who's rumored to be available is Juuse Saros. And the asking price is rumored to be 2 firsts, a top prospect, and another piece. First of all, how reasonable an ask is that? And secondly, we'll discuss where he might end up and who might actually pay anything close to that.
When you hear something like that for a goalie, that has a good to great regular season resume, and then playoff resume is like to be determined, undersized, not having the greatest season. So when you hear that kind of price tag, it sounds to me like they don't want to trade him. It's like, yeah, sure, give us all this if you really want him, but we don't want to trade him. So whether they're just doing it to, be like, well, this is, and see if they get any snags from it. But
well, I agree. The devil's advocate to that is Askarov could probably start playing NHL games soon.
Is that the best thing for for that to
He
happen.
wants
for
to play
Nashville
in the
to do.
NHL. I think next year
Who
it would be
doesn't
fine.
want to play in the NHL?
That's fair.
That's like what was the coach that had the quote that used his daughter as, with Yurchek,
yeah, my daughter wants a car, but she's 13.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you didn't just go there, did you? Like, you realize that this is guy's like a professional athlete.
You know that they're writing down that quote, right?
Yeah.
This is just more Columbus management nonsense. Like I said, day one, as soon as the Babcock thing happened, that whole team should have been fired into the sun the minute that happened. I stand by that. And this has been an absolutely lost, brutal, burn it year that's actually going to hurt them past this year because the Severson and Provorov deals were stupid. And they never should have done them. And they should have had more foresight.
Provorov was okay because they got him at a discounted price. He's a good defenseman. Severson was not necessary. You had guys coming up the system. Like, what has he done to deserve an 8-year deal at what was he at 6.5, close to 7 or so?
Yeah, I think it's 6.5.
And that was a ridiculously bad move, and I feel like they also paid an asset to trade for him before.
Yeah, they paid like a fourth.
Yeah,
which is,
still.
I mean, whatever. Yeah, they
still,
certainly
that's UFA money.
Yeah, well, and more importantly, and here's where the issue comes in. I agree, the Provorov deal was fine. You're blocking capable defensemen. You know, like they had Nick Blankenberg last year was one of their top D when he was healthy. They knew they had Jiricek coming. They've got just an absolute backlog on D. Provorov is still signed next year for another $6.7 million. And if they can flip,
they only pay like 4.5.
Yeah. If they can flip him, then okay, I'm game. They probably should have flipped him already. But if you can flip him this year, sure. I don't hate it as much, but it's one of those whys. You know, when a team needs to be rebuilding and developing their youth properly, Columbus has really pushed back against that every chance they've gotten. And that's the problem I have with, and the Mike Babcock signing was just monumentally stupid. But I just think a whole bunch of people in that front office think there's something they're not, and it's costing them.
Yeah, I didn't at the time, and I still don't get the Severson deal. Even if he slots in as a number 4 on your team in Columbus, it's just that's a lot of money tied up in a defenseman. That's okay, but he leans a little bit more on the offensive side of things. So it's not like you're getting like a steady stay-at-home D-man like Chris Tanev or something like that to pair with a Jiricek or Matejchuk and so yeah, Jiricek's probably looking at everything. He's reading the writing on the wall. Like there's no room in the lineup for me, and like he's just frustrated, and I get it.
Yeah, I it's just not how I would do it. Columbus has been bad since the Toronto series, and they haven't created that much brighter a future for themselves in the meantime. They got Fantilli, which is great, but you know, you look at what Montreal has done with their cap in the last 3 years, and you look at what Columbus has done, and it's just like those are wasted years where you did not hoard picks and didn't weaponize your cap space because you thought you were something you were not. And I can forgive that for a year, but 3 is just like, well, who looked at that roster this year and said, we are 2 defensemen away from being a playoff team. And those 2 defensemen we need are Ivan Provorov and Damon Severson. And then, by golly, we're going to compete. Like, get out of here, man. Like, you're insane.
Yeah, well, they're
top 6.
It's one of those things where you have this confirmation bias from within house, where it's like, we got Johnny. We got Laine. He's due to bounce back. We got Fantilli coming up. We have Marchenko, and and what else? They got Sillinger. And so it's like all these guys are going to be, progressing and being better. And they just weren't.
I compare it to when the Leafs got Kessel, where they had enough assets where if everything went right, they could be a serious team. Maybe not a contender, but they could be a serious team if everything went right. But how often does everything go right in the NHL? Vancouver's seeing it right now, right? This is an everything goes right year for Vancouver. Colorado had it a couple of years ago. Even if everything went right for that team, I still don't know that they're definitely not a contender. They're maybe a playoff team, but like when you're looking at guys like Sillinger and Marchenko and Werenski, who misses half the year every year, and saying all these guys are going to be the best versions of themselves, like you're delusional. I'm sorry. A team like that should be pushing all in, and when there's competition at every single spot up and down the lineup. When you got 9 guys vying for the top 6. Like if Buffalo made moves like that this year, I would get it. Okay, sure. Yeah, what else? You going to stockpile more assets there? Dude, why? I understand that. They go out and trade some talent and sign some number 4 defenseman or make trade. I get that. But like Columbus was just not in a position to ever do that. How did we end up talking about Columbus? We were talking about Juuse Saros. What happened there? It doesn't matter. Big news today. This is my favorite news of the week. The Olympics are coming back to the NHL. Sidney Crosby might still be around. Maybe he's.
What do you mean might? He will be around. I think he's got that amount of term left on his contract.
Yeah, it was somewhat tongue in cheek. We're gonna get to see Bedard and Crosby and McDavid and Makar all on the same team.
McKinnon.
Oh yeah, well he's always the 5th guy you mentioned, so that's fine.
He's not. He's the playoff guy. He's the warrior. You know this.
This is your dead air. You feel this dead air. I'm not doing it. You feel this dead air.
Every May, the conversation starts, well, is it McDavid or is it McKinnon as the player in a 1 game or best of 7 in the playoffs? Which one do you want?
I will state this until I die. You swap the team that McDavid and McKinnon are on, and the Avs have probably won more than 1 cup. And McDavid has shown that the last 2 playoffs. McDavid outscored McKinnon in the last 2 playoffs, and he played fewer games. Like, come on. It's not the Oilers not winning a cup isn't a McDavid problem. It's a organization.
I didn't say anything about the cup.
Well, you just said to win 1 game. To win 1 game in May. And you know what? I'll do you one further. I'm not sure I take either of them over Leon Draisaitl at that time of year.
I disagree with that.
Shh. Who has more goals than Draisaitl in the last 2 playoffs combined?
I don't know.
Who was on track to break the playoff scoring record until he got his arm hacked off by Pietrangelo last year?
Yeah,
he had 18 goals in like 3 rounds, man. Like it's Draisaitl turns.
Didn't have 18 goals in 3 rounds.
Is 18 the record? He had 13 goals. I'm gonna look it up.
It's a record, I think. Yeah.
He was trending for 18 goals.
So was Evander Kane. So.
Oh man, that's the guy you want in the playoffs. Yeah, no, I think Leon might be my guy in the playoffs. And I say that it hurts. So he had 13 goals in 12 games last year. The year before, he had 25 points in 16 games. And your boy McKinnon, just because I'd like to see it, because I don't disagree that Mac does often turn it up for big games, but I think if you look at a bigger picture, yeah, like McKinnon had 24 points the year they won the cup. He had 7 points in 7 games last year. He had 15 points in 10 games the year before. He had 25 and 15. Like, these are not McDavid and Draisaitl numbers, man. They're just not. And he's on a team that has the puck a lot more than McDavid and Draisaitl do.
I stand by it.
Of course you do.
That's my pick.
You have to. You're just wrong. That's all.
No.
No.
And then you could also
since you asked,
Makar's better than all of them almost in the playoffs.
That's a discussion I'll have if you're willing to be a rational person. The year we lost to you in the conference final, McDavid was 2 points per game with 33 points in 16 games. So 20 points last year in 12.
It's not all about points. No.
I can't wait till we win a cup and we don't have to have these silly conversations anymore about Mr. May. In any event, the Olympics are coming. I can't wait. It is such a darn shame that Russia won't be there. Maybe they will. They're not in the, what are they calling it? The tourney of 4 that the NHL is going to do next year. They're not in that. Man, nothing feels the same in international hockey without Russia, hey?
It's true, but I feel like Russia would be they wouldn't have a great team for this Olympics coming up. I feel like there's a lot of their star players are graduating. So who are star Russian players right now? You got Kaprizov. We haven't seen them represent Russia in a while. I can't even pop my head. Like D, they got like
Sergachev,
Zadorov,
Nikishin would be on that team.
Provorov. So like they would be Finland level. Good.
Well, they've got Kucherov, they've got Panarin, they got Vasilevsky, they've got Shesterkin, they've got
I was
Sorokin,
drawing a blank.
They've got Svechnikov, they've got Buchnevich. They are light on D. They've got Nikushkin if he's out of the tank by then. Their D would be suspect. They'd have, Orlov, Provorov, Sergachev. Nikishin would be in that top 4. I guarantee it. I was
wrong. Yeah, I forgot about those. The Kucherov, Panarin.
And goaltending wise, they probably have the best goaltending in the tournament.
Yeah, you can only play one though. But...
yeah, sure. I'll give you that. Anyways, I think it would be worth having a 5th team there for it to be Russia. Just because I think back to some of my favorite international memories. A lot of them involve, it's either Russia or the States, man. I know that Finland beat us that year in the World Juniors, but US and Russia are the games I look forward to. And Sweden.
Yeah.
So,
just the sheer fear of losing to them. It's like, it's not even like I can't wait to beat them. It's like, I hope we don't lose.
Yeah. So that's a fair point. You never want to see your country's flag burned at center ice by the Russians, but it's always a threat. There's always a chance they got the gas. Didn't they put the Canadian flag on a garbage can one year, or was that the States?
I don't know.
I'm trying to remember which team that was. It was in the locker room, I think, or maybe it was even on the ice. Anyways, I'm pumped. I'm pumped for international hockey at the highest level. It's gonna be exciting. All right,
that'll be early morning time too.
I don't even know where are the Olympics the next 2 times.
It's Italy,
and then
not sure.
You want to go to Italy?
That'd be sweet.
20
tickets will be ridiculous
in Italy.
It's the Olympics, like Team Canada games.
Yeah, there'll be a lot of them. Elected in Paris, favoring the French Alps for a bid for the 20th. It looks like it might be Paris. There you go. I gotta wake up my wife and tell her I'm finally gonna lock up the engagement and we're gonna get married in Paris, and she's gonna say, "Baby, I love you," and I'm gonna say in 2030, and she's gonna say, "What?" And she's gonna say, "Okay, what day?" And I'll say, "I'll let you know."
It's like it's the year of the rooster. It's your birth year.
She knows better than to believe that crap from me. She might buy it from you though. What was that thing you said a few months ago? Do you remember when I realized you might be into astrology?
Oh, I was joking at the time, but
I wasn't sure. You played it well, and I was like, "Oh shit, this is
I
not
don't remember.
this is not good."
Too much stuff has happened since
Maybe
then.
maybe we'll do it in 2026. Italy sounds good. I think I can keep her at bay for a couple more years. She's got the engagement ring. What's another 2 years with the engagement ring? So what? That'll be like 6 years you've been wearing that thing for. That's fine.
You could play off that you want your kids to be old enough to remember it.
You don't have a lot of useful relationship suggestions. I'm just going to say it. I think I've said that to you a few times where I'm like, it's often when you're like, here's how you divvy up the work or like get time to watch hockey. And I'm always like, you idiot. That's not bad. Italy 2023. Yeah, that's not bad, buddy. Thank you. Sorry, 2026. Yeah, I owe you one. I think you might have figured it out. I'll put that money in a special account now. I'll gain interest for more pasta/hockey tickets. All right, so I'm going. You gonna go? You gonna come? You want to be? You can be in the bridal party if it means you'll come. I mean, you were.
Yeah, I'll be.
Yeah,
I'll be the bridesmaid for you guys. I'll be the ring bearer.
I was thinking flower girl, but you, Justin Bieber, Austin Matthews,
get the whole gang together.
That's right. It'll be wonderful.
Well, me and Boobly will share a hotel room.
Oh, microdose, buddy. Make sure it's a microdose. I don't want no antics. Okay, well,
it's handle a full mushroom dose. Jesus,
it has been a few decades for me. Yeah, any dose would be too much at this point. Some prospect stuff. Not a lot to talk about this week, but a little bit. I've got a few things I want to kick by you. I'm showing my cards for our one league where I might have just given you some guys to pick up. First of all, Daniil Yurov has been offered a terribly low, I believe it was a $313,000 US contract. And players much worse than him generally get offered $500,000. I forget who the example was that I saw. So it looks like Yurov is going to come over. He's going to sign with Minnesota this year. That's exciting for all you Dynasty Cap guys. I would say for anyone loading up at this trade deadline who thinks they might have a shot next year, he's a great target.
Yeah, definitely. And there is a silver platter with first line ice waiting for him. That'll be part of the negotiation package as well. And there is no upside for him to stay in Russia if that's true. If they're offering him less than $500,000 a year and he can come over here, mind you, like tax, they pay minimal tax, so that's probably close to take home. But even then, you're coming over here, you'll get decent signing bonuses because you can choose to sign or not. So his take home in the US will probably be close to 600,
6 or 7, yeah,
at least. And so
they'll max bonus him and they'll tell him he gets to play with Kaprizov. So wait, if he's coming over, he's coming over now. If he doesn't sign now, I'd start to worry. So
there's no upside to stay. That's the thing. It's such a no-brainer to come over. And here's your exit point.
They're Russians, though. You never know. Sometimes staying is the upside to staying. They just want to be in Russia.
I don't know. I don't know what that means. But
it means some people love Russia. They just want to stay there. It's Kovalchuk left how much money on the table to piss off to Russia. And now he's playing hockey again in Russia. So, like some guys, I think Ovechkin.
That was the deal. The deal was he was leaving.
I don't know that he was leaving that soon.
We'll give you the bag up front, all this and that, and then we'll void it. Lou knows what he's doing.
Maybe once upon a time he did. I don't think he does anymore. It's bad.
He's grasping at straws.
It's bad in the Isles. I'm not sure Kovalchuk was supposed to leave at 35 or 36 or however old he was. I'm sure he wasn't supposed to play past 38. I don't know that they thought he was leaving that soon. Guys I think Ovechkin's been quoted as saying he wants his kids to grow up as Russians. Like, these are like Russian, they like their heritage. Obviously, Yurov's not got kids yet, but
for sure. But there hasn't been a upper echelon prospect or NHL quality player that has not come over.
You know who we're seeing some rumblings about, though, is Nikishin.
Well, that's only because he was
for
forced to give Putin a jersey and shake his hand. So,
yeah,
there's no way he wasn't doing that. He's the captain of SKA. And
do you think he's coming over next year? Still at the end of next year? If you had to put odds on it, what do you think the odds are?
25. Yeah, you have to come over. Like, there's just not enough money. If salaries were comparable, sure, but you're leaving so much opportunity for making generational
tens
wealth.
of millions of dollars.
Yeah. Like, unless you're getting this under the table stuff,
which on Putin's team they very well 100% are. Their salary is more than
the only way.
Yeah,
it's the only way. But if everything's like legit, and we all know it's not. But I don't know if they. I hope he comes over. I got him in my league, so and he's eating a roster spot while he's playing in the K.
That's right.
Yeah, but he should. The only thing that might with Yurov is that it's Minnesota, and it's not somewhere nicer to come.
If that's the case, they'll trade him.
Yeah.
If it's an issue of where he's going, they'll pull the trigger on something.
He'll come over.
Yeah. All right. The next guy, we're doing a couple guys you should maybe be looking at snagging in your deep dynasty leagues. And these are one guy I've been looking at for a long time. The other one is more recent. The more recent player being Anthony Romani, leading the OHL in scoring as a D+1. He is beating now, in looking through, and obviously I kind of knew this, but the OHL is not the talent powerhouse that it normally is this year. The guys he's ahead of in scoring are Goyette, Hunter Brustowitz, Barkey, Retkov. These are good players, but he's not beating out, Wyatt Johnstons, guys like that this year. He's not a small guy. He's 6'1". He's 184 pounds. It looks like he's ranked in the top 100 by a lot of people for next year's coming draft. So if you're in a league where you're allowed to claim guys who have been through a draft, I think this guy's worth a look. I'm trying to think. You and I have done this quite a few times. So in our league, if you sign a guy who doesn't have an NHL contract, he's automatically signed for 3 years. That's how it works in our league. You and I have both signed guys like this before. Who's your biggest home run swing on an undrafted player that you can recall? Have you hit any? I think you have.
I had Mangiapane and Tanner Pearson were the two that come to mind.
Tanner Pearson, that's right. Yeah, and you also got, he was drafted. Devon Levi was one of your World Junior snags, where he kind of came from nowhere. Yeah, my biggest one. I don't know that I've gotten an under. Oh yeah, well I picked up Kuzmenko the year before last, coming over from Russia. Yeah. So that was a whopper of a claim. I really like to look at these undrafted college free agents and the Russians. I always like to watch them. There's another Russian coming over right away. Everyone should be aware of Nikolai Kovalenko, especially with the Nikushkin thing happening right now. Kovalenko is going to get top 6 minutes in Colorado when he comes across. That's a question.
It looks like a lot will depend on Landeskog and what happens with him if he does make a comeback this year or not. And if he's able to play top 6
Kovalenko's coming before that, though. Kovalenko's coming over.
Well, he'll be in
month,
for the lineup for next year. You can't come, as far as I'm aware, you can't come from the KHL and come and play over in the NHL for the same season.
Are you sure about that? I was sure because if you have a contract, you can't. But Kovalenko's contract expires this year. Like after April 1st or something, he doesn't have
actually the one caveat for him, you might be right, is because he is on loan to the KHL. He is signed with Colorado.
That's the other thing. Yes. Yeah, so he could come over. I'm sure that he can play this year because I've seen a lot of people talking about how he's essentially a deadline acquisition for Colorado. So I'm pretty sure you're getting him this year, man.
I don't know. I don't know if he can play coming from the K this year. Because I think you have to play after or before a certain date to be eligible, maybe for the playoffs or something. But it'll be interesting. He's no spring chicken, so he's fully developed. I think he's like 24 years old. So he's ready. He's going to come out and he'll be at worst third liner in Colorado. But yeah, he's a beauty player. I can't wait to see him in the show.
Keep talking. I just found I just found an article that's entitled, but this is from Colorado Hockey Now. Kovalenko eyeing playoff run with the Avalanche, and it was published in November.
Okay, sweet.
So I'm looking for the quote. I'm pretty sure
it must be because of the loan. Yeah, well, that's good. Yeah, but with Romani, sure, he went undrafted last year, but he only put up 43 points in 60-some games. And what was it, 43? 43 points in 66 games. But this year, he's at 73 points in 47 games, with 38 of them being goals. Now, like you said, the O is not the who's who of top offensive performers right now. It's kind of an interesting mishmash of names up there, but yeah, he's having a fantastic year. It'll be interesting to see where he gets drafted this season after having that kind of year, because I always look at guys like this and that went undrafted and be like, if they were drafted and they had this kind of year in their draft plus one, well, then they're a great prospect. Right. And so,
right. So Hunter Brustowicz.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, well, man, I can't believe he didn't go late in the first or early in the second kind of thing. So yeah, he's worth keeping an eye on. And then your next guy,
the next guy I've been watching since, so I was digging through some of my old watch lists. I always keep them. I title my watch list by the league name and then the year that it was for. And I've been watching him since last year, early, I think, but some point last year. This kid is dynamite. Like, he does everything. He's a demon forechecker, very good two-way hockey player. He's had a 4-goal game in the AHL last month. And he's now over a point per game, and he's top 10 point per game in the league in the AHL. Excuse me, albeit he's only played 21 games or something like that. He was almost a point per game player his last 2 years in college. I am tempted to call this guy the Leafs' number 2 prospect behind Easton Cowan right now. And his point per game is ahead of Genther in the AHL this year, Daniil Gushin, who I really like from San Jose. He's right there with Bork and Stankoven for point per game. Like, this guy, he's showing it all. He's leading the way for the baby Leafs. I think it's time for people to start snatching him up in their dynasty leagues. And truth be told, I've been working on a couple of deals in our league where I can shed a contract just so I can snag him. Nice. So, I guess go get him if you want to, but I'll talk about it on the show as soon as you do. As soon as you claim him, it's the first thing on the list to talk about the next week on the show, just so you know. We don't, for our listeners, we never did write out referendum of rules for this as far as how revealing guys goes, but you'll hear about it if Debert snags him before I can. But man,
I'll talk about how he's the next greatest greatest thing.
I'll have to hear about him for 3 years before he goes the Cal Foot route, or not Cal Foot, Nolan Foot. Which foot was it?
Easy there,
Nolan.
Don't get those two mixed up. The wrong foot.
Why not?
But yeah, for him, is it Tervberg? How do you pronounce it?
Well, I have no idea. I call him Teverberg. I don't care how it's pronounced. It matters how I pronounce it.
But yeah, it's how you read it.
Nikushkin.
And he, so like you had said, with the Leafs, they are in dire need for defensive prospects. They are looking for an offensive catalyst so that Morgan Riley can take a bit more of a look.
You got to listen. He's a forward.
I thought he was a D-man.
No, he's a forward.
Oh, well, I'm wrong then.
Hey,
what do I know?
Now you can't claim him anymore. But I would say I liked where you were going. The Leafs are looking for cheap top six. They've got a big contract kicking in next year.
Why did I think he was a?
I don't know. I kind of surprised you with this note because obviously I wasn't going to tell you any earlier than I had to. But he's a center.
Okay.
Yeah, if he was a point per game D-man in the AHL at this age, his first year in the AHL, I would have found a way I would have bought someone out. Screw the cap space. Giving away Thomas Novak or something to make room for that guy.
Yeah, this one flew under my radar, so I did a quick little research on it. I didn't review the position. Idiot. Oh well.
This friggin' guy. Okay, you're not allowed to claim him anymore. You can have Romani. Deal? We got a deal. That's got to be a deal.
No, I don't want the 3-year contract.
In any event.
And one more guy that he's not relevant for a few years that is absolutely killing it in the WHL at 16 years old and less than a month.
You're going to go long term.
Gavin McKenna.
Yeah, we all know who Gavin McKenna is.
Oh, I know, but just like what he's got going on in the dub over the last couple months, like 26 points in the last 10 games.
Dude, he did this last year. Like he played his 5 games or whatever, and he had like 3 points in his first game.
18 points in 16 games last year. This year he's got 65 and 42 at 16. If in a world where Bedard didn't exist, this guy would be talked about as the next generational talent.
I'm not sure he's not going to be better than Bedard.
He's already 6 feet.
Yeah, he's got a lot of reason. Yeah, this kid is Bedard at 16. So let's see, 18. He put up 28 points in 15 games. So comparable.
That was COVID hockey.
Yeah. There were a lot of factors, but yeah, this Gavin McKenna kid, he's unreal. It's funny, I started. I'm going to show my hand some more here. I was looking at Gavin McKenna, and it was like 11:30, and I couldn't sleep, and I was like, well, my team's pretty well built to dominate the next 5 years, but I could push all in for 2 years. Tank for 1 year. That's how bad I wanted to get my hands on McKenna. Because first of all, I love, and it's why we do this show. Debert and I would both agree that tanking and building up your squad to be 50 guys deep is just the most fun. It's more fun than competing. Like, it really is. Like, I'm in first place in our league this year. I was worst last year. You were worst last year. But we were both 1-2. Like, we're bottomed out for Bedard. Worst to first. I'm having way less fun this year. I stress more. I'm like, oh man, I gotta watch these scoreboards, and it's tight, and I need the guy behind me to lose. So I've won 12 in a row now. I'm only 1 win up on second place, and I'm just like, and this isn't even my year. I've still got 10 million dead cap space because I wasn't supposed to be competing this year. I wasn't planning on going forward till next year, till a certain massive blockbuster came along and forced me to reconsider. And now I'm like, well, do I trade Adam Fantilli for Sam Reinhart for a 2-year contract just to guarantee a couple titles? I mean, 2 in the hand and 1 in the hand, you know?
Yeah, I wouldn't do that. But
well, it wasn't that. I did. So the contract situation here is I have Fantilli unsigned, so I could get him for 3 years, entry level contract whenever I sign him in the next 2 years. He said, I'm not interested in Kulich and Roy and spare parts. And I was like, spare parts? Like the guy's shooting 29%. It's contract year. They're like, sell high on him. He said, what's it going to take for Fantilli? And I said, off the top of my head, for starters, it would start with Reinhart, Urson, because I could use another cheap goalie who's waiver free. I said Dvorsky and his first would be around 10th this year. And I said, I'm not even sure I would do that because Sam Reinhart stops being $4 million next season in our league, and a $9 million Sam Reinhart isn't all that appealing.
Yep.
So I talked myself out of it, but it's sure. I mean, Reinhardt's like a top 5 forward in our league this year. But
yeah, no, you couldn't fault you for it. Like winning titles and getting the money is what you play fantasy hockey for, mostly. But I like to play it for trying to build up a team from scratch. You know, you sell all your parts.
What does that mean?
What does what mean?
Building a team from scratch. What does that mean? Define
it
that.
Means not necessarily scratch, but you sell your top end players for prospects. And so the scratch would be your ingredients are the prospects that you can accumulate for your top
and you
players.
don't ever flip those guys. Like you want the prospects that you've traded for or drafted to be the guys you win the title with.
Ideally, but you do have to start to if you gain enough of them, you start to package them up for performers.
Yeah,
like my Stützle trade, like the massive trade we made. You know, like.
Well, that was the opposite of what that was a build up for me, and that was a rebuild.
Yeah, but once you're ready, or you can identify, okay, this is the time, and so.
Yeah, you and I do things differently for sure. I'm a tinkerer, and I'll tinker with any piece on the roster for the most part. You definitely are more of a developer for sure. I think I've convinced you to trade a little bit more in the last few years. You've made some big deals.
Yeah.
There was a while there though where we weren't sure that your submit trade button worked. We were pretty sure that it was busted.
Cause it was coming. And then I just got screwed by goalies. God damn you, Laner.
No, you weren't. You weren't. I've got bad news for you. I've said this before. It wasn't your goalies that screwed you last year. It was counting on players before you should have. You cannot count.
Well, I just had a rough start to the year.
You had a rough start, but you weren't
12
deep. You were more like 9 deep, and of that 9, 2 or 3 of them you were hoping were worth being there, and they just weren't. I'm having the same thing this year. Right, I thought Matthew Nyes and Lucas Reichel were going to be contributors this year, and Jake Sanderson. Fortunately, Sanderson has been. But like my strategy on when you decide to push versus when you're just stay the course is second and third year is when you can start to say, okay, like this guy's worth the roster spot. Before that, most rookies aren't. They are not. You know, look at look at how many guys took Logan Cooley in drafts this year. Like, are you stupid? I have a buddy who took Adam. This guy had racked up. I'd helped him tank the year before. I said, listen, he took over a team. I said, this league is very easy to win. You sell 1 year, you rack up a ton of picks, you finish drafting by the 7th round, and then you rock and roll the next year. Great strategy. It's to keep 5. Who gives a shit who your keepers are? You can win with a good draft. This is the guy you know, by the way. Then in the 4th round, he took Adam Fantilli. And I was like, you moron. Like, you're in a push year. You just, like, you got Bedard first overall. Okay, that's your guy. That's your rookie. I get that pick. Of course I get that pick. But, like, you cannot take another rookie if you're all in. You can't. It's insane. And now he's struggling to make the playoffs. And poor Weitzel is just he's like, man, I thought you said this would work. And I went to the draft and I circled all of his stupid picks, and it started with that one. I was like, what did you think was going to happen? How many points did you think this rookie was going to put up this year? That you took him ahead of Sam Reinhart, that you took him ahead of Buchnevich, that you took him, it's just like
Weitzel getting named and shamed on Puck Dynasty.
That's well, I don't think that guy knows how to use a podcast, so I think we'll be okay. It's I felt for the guy. I even tried to offer his way out of Reinhardt. I said, well, listen, I'll give you Fiala and someone else. He's like, man, I'm keeping Fantilli a long term. I was like, but you're supposed to win this year. Now you got to wait another year, right? You got to rebuild. You got to build up those picks again. It's a cycle. It's cyclical. All fantasy sports is cyclical. It's just a matter of how long you can be on top of that circle. And for most guys, it's a couple of years.
It's closer to junior hockey than the NHL, where you gotta be bad, build up capital and picks and prospects, pick a year or two, go for it, and then start to sell once things aren't working out for you.
Similar in length of that cycle too. The NHL, a rebuild can be decades. Certainly 10 years isn't out of the question. Whereas in the WHL, you can go worst to first to worst in a 5-year span.
Yeah.
So I'd agree with that. That's a good comparison. Very good. All right, that's our show. Buck 11. We're not going to talk trades this week. Look for us next week. I would love to spend a good amount of time, assuming it's a down week, which it should be based on the schedule. I'd like to talk about how we trade. What do your talks look like? What are you looking for in a deal? What's the most important aspect to getting a deal done? Anyone who's been in the league with me knows I'm 99% of the leagues I'm in, I'm the heaviest trader. I think there's a method to it. I think there's a way to win 70 to 90% of the deals you make. And there's a way to keep people talking to you despite the fact you win all those deals. So I'd like to have that discussion. We'll be talking more about the pending trade deadline. I mean, trade deadlines are coming in fantasy hockey, folks. You got 2 weeks. So we've obviously told you, if you don't know who to trade for and you're tearing it down, please go back and listen to our last 2 episodes where we talk about our top 50 prospects. Those are guys you should be targeting. Maybe you'll luck out and we'll do an under 23 list before your trade deadline. I don't think we're going to get there. So we'll just talk about what those conversations should look like, as well as what's happening around the NHL and what's happening in prospect land. Deeps, you got anything to say before we sign off? You do.
And the key to all that is identifying where your team is at and being honest with it. You don't want to be stuck in the middle.
Well, yes.
There's teams like everyone knows teams in our leagues that are just always like those bubble teams that
anything can happen in the playoffs.
And they're just like, and then they complain because this guy complains because you and I had all the top prospects. It's like, yeah, buddy, that was the play. Like, like, I can't even get
every first for the next 4 years is taken. Well, then you control the market too. It's a couple of years I've tried to control positions, just as trying new things in leagues when I knew that I wasn't necessarily the guy. So last year I was tanking for Bedard in my keep 10, and I'd just come off a 3-peat. I knew I wanted to tank for Bedard, and I just wanted to have fun. So I think my first pick was maybe in the 5th round. And with my first 4 or 5 picks, I took D-men. I took all the D-men. And it's not a league that necessarily rewards D-men. It's a 12-forward, 62-goalie league. So, D value is fine. But I kind of lucked out. So I drafted Quinn Hughes, Dahlin before he exploded. I had Thomas Chabot. I had Chychrun. I don't even remember who else, but I started runs on D. So I ended up getting a few forwards who probably shouldn't have been available in the 7th and 8th round because guys were like, shit, there's no more D. And then I turned around and it's a keep 10, and I had 9 keepers, not including any of those D. Darlene hadn't broken out. Quinn Hughes wasn't a keeper till this year. So I flipped those 3 D I mentioned and Reinhardt. This is one of the bigger, stupider / smarter trades I've ever made. My 10th keeper, I turned those 4 guys into Makar. And then at the deadline, I flipped one of the guys because I knew I was drafting Bedard this year, and he was going to be my now 10th keeper. So then I flipped for some more picks, and this year it's cruising to first in the league, and I'm like hundreds of points up as far as average scoring on the next team. So it's
with Bedard.
Yeah. So it's one. If you're in a limited keeper, you always want to consolidate. It's hard though. If you're in a good league with smart people who have seen you screw people before, they know better than to give you a 2 or 3 for 1. So I went and offered 4 to the guy who I thought was probably the best GM in the league besides myself, not to sound too cocky. And he was like, you son of a bitch. Like, how am I supposed to say no to this? I was like, well, you can't. Like, you cannot say no to this trade.
It's a good deal.
Yeah, it's a great deal.
You're just nodding your head the whole time. It's a good deal.
Well, I mean, it is, and it was. Darlene outscored Makar last year, if I recall. So it was like by himself, right? Now this year, obviously, we're back on the Makar year, and going forward, I know who I want, but I will lose that trade 1 out of every 3 or 4 years. Just, he kept a couple of those guys, whatever. But it was really just like, make sure I had the best 10 I had. And it all stemmed from this wacky thought I had looking at how the draft was going, where I was like, I think I'm just going to run demon. And then the other time I did this, I did it with goalies. It was a dress 2 goalie league, and I think I took 6 goalies in the first maybe 8 rounds. Now, we obviously know what 0G is. It's a very popular thing. But if you're not going to go 0G, going 100% G is fun as hell, because then all of a sudden everyone's scrambling. So this was categories league. So it was 5 goaltending categories and 6 or 7 offensive. So they're fairly important. But a lot of guys were like, yeah, 0G. Next thing they knew, there were no starters left. And like for 2 rounds straight, it was like Cam Talbot. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm getting and within a month of the season, I had flipped 4 of those goalies for like 8 very good players. So yeah, it's always fun. I could talk trade strategy forever. And to your point of the most important thing is identifying where you're at, I agree with that. I would also say that as a long-term strategy in a keeper or dynasty league, I think the most important thing if you want to be an active trader is actually to make sure that your offer makes sense. Every now and again, I throw out offers that don't make sense, where it's like the guy's in 4th place and I'm going for one of his best players for prospects. That doesn't make any sense. I'll try and sell it. Be like, listen, you're in 4th. I'm the guy in 1st. You're 10 points behind me. You're not going to win. Be smart. They don't want to be smart. That's fine. But if you go at guys with offers that make sense, it doesn't matter if they've lost the last 4 deals to you. They're still inclined to have the conversation because the deal makes sense. Mm-hmm. So that's the other thing I always say is don't just look for players, look for situations that you're not just talking nonsense to a guy. So that would be my number 2 golden rule of trading, and we'll talk more about it next week. Thanks for listening, folks. Happy All-Star Weekend, I guess. And we'll catch you next week. I'll be on the Hacks with Wednesday, and then we'll be back next weekend for our show. Thanks for listening, Deebs. Nice to see you, buddy.
Happy weekend, y'all.
You did it again.